So you've been in a very high-profile legal battle with the SEC for almost 2 years. Both sides have now asked a federal judge to make a call on whether XRP is indeed a security that falls under the purview of the SEC. My question to you is, why now, and why are you foregoing the right to go through a trial and present more evidence? Why are you so sure that everything is already out there?
So trials are really reserved for when there's a question of fact. And so juries and judges are what are the actual facts? In this case, the facts are pretty clear. The question is about the law. And we think the law is clear. And the law requires, and the statute as written by Congress, the law requires that there's an investment contract. That's step one. Before you even get to the Howey test, which is often talked about, you have to have a contract between two parties. We don't even think we get past that step because an investment contract, if you don't have an investment contract, you certainly don't have a security because there's no agreement, period. If you get to the Howey test, then it's also a question of law. So we think this step of summary judgment is, first of all, the fastest path to resolution. We have been pushing very hard to move this quickly, partly because we think the law is clear and partly because we think the whole industry needs the clarity we're seeking.
Yeah, and I definitely want to come back to the broader implications for the crypto industry. But on that point of an investment contract, the SEC has made the case in its motion that that there can be an investment contract without a contract, any rights granted to the purchaser and without any obligations to the issuer. What do you say to that?
In order to have a contract, you have two parties. No matter how the SEC wants to spin the facts, the reality is to have a contract, you have two parties have to agree on something. You don't necessarily have it written. You can have oral contracts, you can have implicit contracts, but you have to have two parties. The reality is there are not two parties. Ripple doesn't know who bought the XRP. The people who bought the XRP don't necessarily know Ripple. You have to remember that 99.9% of XRP trading has nothing to do with Ripple, the company. So when you talk about, okay, XRP is a security, I go back to something I said years ago when this started, a security of what company, of what, who is the owner? So I think it's very clear there is no investment contract. If you get past the investment contract, which I think is hard, across the Howey test, you also you have to meet all three prongs. And in the case of the XRP case, you can't meet all three prongs for sure. And so we think that the judge will see that the law is very clear. We think the facts are very clear. And we think this is just a gross overreach of the SEC trying to wrest control of that uncertainty that has existed. And really the unfortunate thing is the SEC and really the US government hasn't taken this step to provide that clarity that a lot of other countries around the world have.
What's up, guys? The case between Ripple and the SEC is just getting juicier by the day. But do you think Ripple will back down? Or will the SEC choose to settle? It's a case that has been going on for ages, almost 2 years now, and now XRP is on the verge to set its footprint in the history books. And when that happens, the SEC will be in some trouble. There's so much we need to talk about today, so let's roll that intro and get straight to it. As always, welcome to Money Side, your favorite crypto channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you get updates when we drop new videos. And don't forget to smash that like button. Remember, you can always leave a comment or a question in the section below. Let's start with a tweet. Digital Asset Investor has been actively keeping XRP holders updated on what's happening within the crypto world, and specifically with the court case. And his recent tweet was based off an article that goes into detail about the SEC's fault. Digital Asset Investor states, so he's on the phone with Bill Hinman in the lead up to the Ethereum free pass. Then when the Ethereum gates hits the fan, the same guy goes to DC to talk about disadvantaged folks in token investing when they are disadvantaged directly because of the Ethereum free pass. Unbelievable. To be honest, Ethereum has been getting a lot of free passes from the government and other bodies. Imagine the high gas fees went on for so long with millions complaining about it, and the Ethereum team only just recently did something to fix it. Will it bring back the losses creators on Ethereum have had to endure over the years? Hell no! The only good thing from this merge is that creators on the network no longer have to suffer such challenges. Ethereum also got a free pass from the SEC. But here's the most interesting bit. This current case has brought some light into what happens behind the curtains. And I can assure you, chances of Ethereum's company slipping from the government again are slim. I believe once the SEC loses the case against Ripple, they will try and bring back their honor by taking down Ethereum. What do you think? Will the SEC go after Ethereum next? You can leave your thoughts in the section below. Now, here's another tweet that goes into detail about the Hinman's public calendar. Some of the things that stand out is that Hinman met with Ripple's counsel on the day when he gave his famous speech. That's mind-blowing. And here's the slam dunk. the SEC actually lied about Hinman's governmental calendar. Imagine that. Now, here's something else you need to pay attention to. I think as everyone is concentrating on Ripple and the SEC, the regulatory body is actually mounting a case against Ethereum.
And I do want to talk about Ripple's future if it does fall that way. But before we do, in terms of industry-wide precedent that might be set, so far the SEC has really only partitioned off Bitcoin and perhaps Ether as falling under the purview of the CFTC. You this week met with Caroline Pham, who's one of the commissioners of the CFTC. What did you guys talk about?
Well, I think Commissioner Pham's learning. I think she's very bright, still, relatively new to her position, and I think trying to learn. And I think she has spoken out about the need for the clarity that we have been seeking. And so, even what you're describing, the SEC Chair Gensler has said he won't comment on specific projects. He does comment on Bitcoin, which is a specific project. When asked directly about ETH, despite the previous administration, they viewed ETH to have been a security, then transitioned to a non-security. You now have the SEC making noises that perhaps ETH is indeed a security, and even in a recent legal filing not related to Ripple, they made the assertion that because most ETH nodes are based geographically in the United States, that they have jurisdiction to regulate ETH. So look, I do think at the core we have to go back to what is the law? What is the statute that Congress wrote to give the SEC power? And in this case, I think the SEC has greatly overstepped, and not just in this case, but what we're seeing with ETH. Gary Gensler also likes to say that the rules are clear, but then you ask him, well, is ETH a security? He won't answer. Well, if they're that clear, let's provide the clarity that everyone's seeking. And I think it's just been really kind of frustrating and disingenuous.
Now, the implications for Ripple, you had mentioned that perhaps the company would leave the US, like you're based in San Francisco right now. How realistic a scenario is that in the aftermath of this ruling?
Well, we already have our second largest office today is London. We have a large office in Singapore. We have offices in Sao Paulo, Mumbai. So I view, it's a very global business to begin with. I mentioned earlier, 95% of our customers are non-US. And that certainly has continued to be the case during the lawsuit here in the US. So I don't think it's going to change our business much, depending upon how it plays out. We have had almost growing 10x year on year in terms of volumes across what we call RippleNet, and that's in the middle of the lawsuit. So I do think about this a lot in context of what does it mean for the US crypto industry? How do we think about blockchain growing and thriving here domestically? And I think as a US citizen, I care, and I think it's important for us to be competitive to have that clarity.
When people think about the SEC versus the CFTC in terms of being the regulator of crypto, the SEC is typically seen as being stricter and kind of harder in their stance on digital assets. CFTC a bit softer. Does that stereotype bear out?
Well, I would characterize the SEC has built a reputation, I think it's deserved, as being a bully. Many players that the SEC has gone after, they simply have to fold their cards. I mean, Ripple will spend well over $100 million defending ourselves in a case that we have tried to move forward as quickly as we can, and the SEC has gone as slowly as they can. Another example I think is pretty profound. There's a kind of infamous speech that Bill Hinman, the director of corporate finance in the SEC, gave in June of 2018 saying, ETH is not a security. And the judge 5 times in the last 18 months, the judge in our case, she has ordered the SEC to turn over the notes in that case 5 times. We still don't have those notes. And I look at that as the SEC, it is a government agency. The government works for the people. The judge is ordering the SEC to turn these notes over, and they won't do it. And they keep coming up with new reasons why. So much so that the judge, in her most recent ruling, said the SEC is being hypocritical. And I will quote, saying, not following a faithful allegiance to the law. These are damning words for an agency whose mission is stated as to protect investors. In the case of the the Ripple lawsuit, they destroyed $15 billion of value in the XRP market when they filed the lawsuit. That was not protecting investors.
Like I said, sooner rather than later, the SEC will go for Ethereum. And if Ripple loses this case, they'll move their headquarters away from the US. Now, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Leave them in the section below. As always, do your own research and always trade safely, guys. Please keep in mind we're not a licensed financial advisor. All videos on this channel are intended for entertainment purposes only. You can always let us know what you think in the comment section below, and let's have a conversation. Thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, and please click on that subscribe button below and turn on notifications so you get informed whenever we post our amazing content. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next Money Side.